Hi and welcome to the Transform Your Wellness podcast. I'm Karen Hagberg and I help people transform their lives so they can live to their highest potential. The Transform Your Wellness podcast is heartfelt and inspiring conversations with incredible people who are contributing and following their passion and soul purpose. It's conversations with people who have not only transformed their own life, but also contribute to the world by helping others as well. And today I've got the absolute privilege to have a conversation with James Neale. And the title of today's podcast is Helping People Escape Big Tech, Decentralising the World. And James is a former lawyer of 12 years. But interestingly, he has also had a singing career alongside that, where together with his dad and two younger brothers was a lead singer in a family band, the Neales, where they became finalists in Britain's Got Talent 2015 and got to number 22 in the UK chart 2016. And for the past 21 months, he has been a global distributor with ClearPHONE, the world's first only decentralized encrypted de-Googled phone that stops big tech spying. It's private and secure. It doesn't steal your data or personal information, amongst other things. And James also enjoys working hard to help people escape the big tech and the big government's overreach. He's a keen sportsman and has a big passion for cricket. And I am very, very pleased to have James Neale here on the podcast. So welcome, James.
Thank you, Karen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How's your day been?
Well, just starting really. So it's only 9 o'clock in the morning over here in the UK, isn't it? So yeah, plenty to get done today, but really looking forward to this.
Yeah, fantastic. So whereabouts in the UK are you and where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm based in Birmingham, in a part of the city centre called the Jewellery Quarter, which is quite a nice sort of quiet part of a city centre if you can get a quiet part. And I grew up in a suburb of Birmingham called Solihull. I actually spent 6 months playing some cricket in Melbourne in 2007, 2008 as an overseas pro for a club called Kew over in the sub-districts over there, which is really good fun. But otherwise, other than that and going to university, I basically have lived most of my life in Birmingham. Obviously, I like to travel, but yeah, this is like my home base.
Okay, fantastic. So how did you find Melbourne when you were here?
I loved it, to be honest. I thought it sort of lived up to the billing. It was into the top 2 or 3 best places in the world to live back then. I think with a lot of things that have happened over the last 2.5, 3 years, probably not quite the same now. But we could go into that if you want to or not. But basically, no, I loved it over there. It's a very, very sports driven place. It got, obviously, while I was over there, we got the Australian Open tennis as well. And I had a friend playing in the juniors. So I went and watched him in the juniors. He got to the quarterfinals of that. He's actually a top 20 in the world tennis player now called Dan Evans. So yeah, it was worthwhile going along and watching him. So that was pretty cool. And I got to go to the MCG on Boxing Day. And I think Melbourne was one of those cities where it's really easy to get around as well. It's a bit grid-like, but makes it very, very easy to get around on the trams and stuff like that. And I lived most of my time in a place called Fitzroy, just off Brunswick Street, which is quite central and really, really cool. Probably a bit too cool for me in some ways. I wouldn't put myself down as one of the cool kids, but no, I really enjoyed it. And weirdly enough, I don't know whether it's sort of full circle, but I actually worked for the telecommunications ombudsman for several months while I was over there. So so you hear about people's problems with their internet and broadband and their phone lines and stuff like that, particularly people in rural areas, and used to try and help them with their tech issues then. But I think 15 years ago when I was 21 years old, because I'm 36 now, I think I wasn't quite as aware of the world as I am today.
Yeah. So just back to cricket, when did you start playing cricket and was that your main sport that you were involved in?
Yeah, so my dad was a really good tennis player. My dad played junior Wimbledon, but he wasn't much of a cricketer. But he was always just quite good at all ball sports, really. He was mainly football and tennis himself. But he tried to force me down the tennis route and used to send me to loads of lessons and stuff when I was younger. But for some reason, I just didn't really love it. I think he probably pushed me a bit too hard to try and do the tennis. And when I was 8 years old, I started playing a bit of cricket, but 10 years old when I took it up properly. And I had a really, really good coach, a guy called Terry Bird, who still, before the start of every single season, will message me asking me what my goals and my dreams are for the season and what I want to do. And he's like in his mid-70s now, and he rings me for like half an hour, 40 minutes before the start of the season just to find out what my goals and plans are. Yeah, he's just been a real big mentor in my cricket career, if you can call it a career, because I never made it pro or anything, but I've played semi-pro level. So yeah, 10 years old, loved it. From about 13, 14, I was playing adult cricket. 14 years old, I made the first team at my club, which was a good standard. And even though I was only small and very, very slight build, managed to kind of punch above my weight with my ability, because it's a physical sport, but it's also a mental sport. And I think 80-90% of it is to do with what's going on up there, rather than necessarily, being all about, physical strength, stamina, etc. And that's what I like about it. It's a thinking man's game as well as a sport. So yeah, lots of tactics involved, and I'm a bit of a geek for statistics. So I love all that stuff. I was that kid when I was about 12 years old, who the coach would go, right, lads, they need 5 runs and over. And I go, no, they need 5.23 runs per over for this. And I'd just literally like, I was that annoying little kid. So yeah. And then when I got to 18, I actually left my junior club and I got an offer to get paid to play cricket at another club. And so I went there for some money, because when I was at university, that was helpful. But actually, I didn't really enjoy getting paid to play. If I'm honest, it put a bit too much pressure on something that I just wanted to enjoy as a sport. And yeah, after a couple of years, I really liked the club that I was at, and I just said, no, you can keep your money and I'll just pay my subs, and went from there, really. So yeah, and then, long story short, I went and played a really good level of club cricket, like proper semi-pro level, where basically everybody in the team was paid other than me. So I was the person actually organising the payments and handing out the brown envelopes, and I was the only person to have to then hand over my £10 at the end of the game for my subs. But it was great. I opened the batting with a guy that played Test match cricket for England called Darren Maddy. My captain was a guy called Dominic Osler, who played professional cricket for 20 years, played England A, and is one of the most successful, was part of one of the most successful club cricket sides ever and stuff like this. So I got to do some pretty amazing things and go on tours all over the world, like Barbados, Cape Town. I've obviously played in Australia for 6 months. So I've just absolutely loved playing my cricket.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I listened to that and I figure you're a pretty driven person.
Yeah, I just don't do things by halves. I think if I get involved in something, I have to give it 110%. And if I don't, I just feel bad. So I can't really do it. And so I sometimes will just hold my hands up and go, I'm not able to do that right now because of this, that, the other. But I am a bit of a people pleaser at times. So I try and fit a lot in. That's probably one of my flaws that I need to work on.
Okay. Yeah, I found it really interesting when I got to know you, and then I found out that you had competed at Britain's Got Talent. I thought, wow, this is an interesting person. You got the background of the sport, you got the singing, and then also the lawyer part of you. So just tell us a little bit about the experience with Britain's Got Talent and how did that come about?
Yeah, it was a bit bizarre, really. But before we go on to that, like, Karen, you've got your own story behind you anyway, with your Olympic rowing and all that kind of stuff. So that's how you end up in Australia, isn't it? So that's pretty amazing in itself. But yeah, with the Britain's Got Talent thing, it was something that was a dream of my dad's for probably about 10 years before he went on the show. He had a heart attack at 50 years old. He was a criminal defense lawyer. Obviously, I was a lawyer as well, kind of followed in his footsteps, but a different area of law. And but he was just working really, really hard. Like, I'm talking like 85, 90-hour weeks, and like up at all hours, out on call, going to police stations and doing all the hard yards he didn't really have to do as somebody owning his own law firm. But he obviously really enjoyed the work that he did. He wanted to work hard, earn lots of money to kind of keep me and my brothers in a certain lifestyle that he wanted for us. So we all went to sort of private school, and we never really wanted for anything. If we wanted a new pair of boots for football or new cricket bat, we as long as we weren't being being absolute assholes as kids, then basically, yeah, that we tended to be okay and looked after, which was amazing. And my mum worked really hard as well, looking after us behind the scenes. So I suppose, like, you know, she was just doing anything and everything to kind of support the family home and do everything there as well. So they were a good team from that point of view. But Dad worked really, really hard, and then just was so stressed. He was actually trying to pick up, he did like organ lessons. I know this is really random, but he used to like go play the organ with people. He wasn't very good. So when they used to do their organ shows, they never asked him to play the organ. They used to ask him to sing. Anyway, so he was like there trying to lift an organ with somebody, and he had a heart attack. And so then he was rushed to hospital. Yeah. And that was when he was 50 years old. So obviously that was a scary moment for me and my family, and obviously particularly my dad. And he then, once he got fitter again and a bit healthier, he decided he wanted to do some stuff, calm down with the work. Obviously still work hard, but not just quite as long as, and be as stressed. And to de-stress, he wanted to go do some singing alongside it. So he started doing some gigs, crooning, sort of doing Rat Pack, Sinatra, Bublé type stuff. That was his genre. And some people would sometimes pay him 150, 200 pounds maybe to go do an hour and a half set or something, and he'd donate all the money to a hospice over here called Mary Curie Hospice. And then he started getting it in his head that he would release an album that he did. So he went and got some studio time, paid for it himself, and he called it Laurie's Criminal Record. So obviously criminal defense lawyer. Like, my dad's very corny. Unfortunately, my dad's very corny, and I'm a bit corny like him, unfortunately. But yeah, so Laurie's Criminal Record happened, and he started sort of gifting them to people, but asking for a minimum £5 donation. I think he did 1,000 CDs to people around Birmingham and slightly further away, and raised like £5,000 for the hospice, which was great. And he was just interested in getting his music out there. So and he just really enjoyed the accolades, I suppose, that came with it, the enjoyment he got from it. So yeah, anyway, a few years later, sort of, he's in his mid-50s, and he's like, do you know what? We should go on Britain's Got Talent. And without telling us, he actually entered us one year, but there's like pre-auditions before you go on the show. So every year then we just said, Dad, I can't even say it on the podcast, but you can imagine the swear words that came out of mouth. And he's like, we're going to go on this show and this, that, the other. And he said, like, I think Simon Cowell will quite like it. And we're like what, Dad? You sing by yourself. None of us sing. We've never sung together before. What are you even talking about? Like, this is ridiculous. This is just an absolute pipe dream. And so every year the show would contact him because they had him on his email, on their email database. That was it. So they would contact, he'd go, see, they want us. And it was like, Dad, you're literally deluded. They don't want us. They're just literally just on a round robin email. Anyway, he was turning 60 in 2015. And I just decided, do you know what? I said, Dad, if it'll shut you up, I will go on. We'll do a duet together, just you and me. You can do the harmonies, I'll do the main bit, and we'll go from there. Anyway, the other two then eventually said, yeah, go on, then we'll get involved as well. We practiced 4 Saturdays in a row. Now, I know this is a long build up to this, but it just shows how hesitant we were and how we didn't want to do this in the first place. We ended up obviously learning this song, practiced 4 Saturdays in a row, went on the show. We were there about 12 hours before we got on stage. So we were knackered, looked really tired, forgot that everybody on TV wears makeup. So you look really pale and washed out and everything as well. So it looked terrible. And just basically crapped our pants. It was really, really, really nerve wracking. It's about 12 million people watch the show or something. And you got Simon Cowell and David Walliams, Amanda Holden and Alicia Dixon there, and you're backstage and people were getting booed off the stage while we were stood back there, and we were like, oh my God, what have we done? Why are we doing this? We were just looking at each other like, gee. So we actually like nipped off to the disabled toilet to have one more run through. So we pretended we all needed the loo and they'd have to wait for us. So we went to the disabled toilet, had one more run through the song, and then went out on stage and did it. And thankfully it went okay. The first few notes came out well, and we got a standing ovation of 4 yeses, and then we got through a few other rounds, semi-finals, and semi-finals was the first public votes, and we got a lot of public votes, which was great. So we got through the semis into the final, and we got a bit screwed over in the final because these shows are not there to facilitate your career in singing or whatever it is that you're performing. They're more there to make a good show for them, and we were doing things that were best for us and they were trying to do things that were best for them, and there was a clash there, so it didn't really work out for the final, and they screwed us over a little bit, but that's the way it is. So
yeah, amazing. It must have been an incredible experience to have had that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, to be honest. And when the first show aired, like, I could literally have handed what was an iPhone at the time. I could have just handed it to you, and it was just buzzing constantly for about 7 hours. Like, everybody just sending messages. I got random girls sending me pictures of their friends. Do you want to date my mate? Do you, and things like that. People coming out of the woodwork from nowhere and stuff. But it was there was just a lot of nice messages. It was very well received, and yeah, we got some nice comments. So it was really good. And I think the main thing is that Dad absolutely loved it, and it was really about him and why we did it. But it was one of those weird things where suddenly, actually, something that was just his dream, it became all of our dream, and we really, really enjoyed it and just wanted to make the most out of it that we possibly could. And it does drive you a little bit when, if you win the show, you do win £250,000 tax free. So that would have been quite nice if we could have done that. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. So
yeah, amazing. And then tell us a little bit about your career as a lawyer. How tell us a little bit about that and how you found that, and what made you decide to, I guess, change your career path or stop being a lawyer after that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think firstly, people might just describe me as a bit of an argumentative tosser. That's probably why I got into law in the first place. But yeah, no, I think, my dad was a lawyer. My godfather was a lawyer as well, and he was my dad's best mate. So I was kind of surrounded by that anyway. And when I was learning to drive, when I was like 17 years old, I actually learned to drive and get work experience at the same time. So my dad would wake me up in the middle of the night. I would drive him, and he would obviously be coaching me. And then I'd drive to the police station, and we'd go into the interviews with the clients and stuff, and do all that kind of thing. So that was quite cool. So I kind of like killing two birds with one stone with that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, it was either that or probably go into like maybe sports journalism or something, was something that interested me as well, because obviously I'm a keen sportsman. So it came to crunch time, decided to go for being a lawyer. I really enjoyed aspects of it, but when I was at university, I kind of had a bit of a growth spurt. I was only about 5'2" until I went to university, and then in my 17th, 18th year of life, I grew about nearly a foot, so I'm now 6 foot tall. So when I went to university and I could suddenly go out and there were beers and lots of other things, and I didn't have my parents telling me what to do, I kind of didn't study very hard, I'm not going to lie. So I just used to wing it a lot with the law degree, but I did okay. And then it was definitely something I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the practical aspect more than the theoretical aspect of being a lawyer. So I enjoyed getting my hands dirty and getting involved in cases and learning on the job more so than just studying theory, which didn't really float my boat as much. So when I got into the world of work, did okay. Like, I got to be an associate at a top 20 international law firm, and that was going really well. But when I did the singing, I kind of reassessed and started thinking, am I actually enjoying my job? I enjoyed the work. The work was interesting and fascinating. I did some really cool, interesting cases. I used to do insurance litigation work, so I defended personal injury and product liability claims on behalf of insurance companies and their insured. So high value personal injury, and fires and floods and things like that, where there was like large losses. So that was quite interesting and analytical. But the job itself was very, very hard work, lots of long hours. The support probably wasn't there from like a secretarial point of view as well, and stuff like that. And they just kept putting more and more on you. And it just got to a point where I was like, do you know what? I don't think I could do this for the rest of my life. And I looked around the office and everybody looked miserable. And I was like, do you know what? If I carry on doing this, I'm just going to turn into somebody who's miserable as well. And you kind of get trapped by money as well. So if you're earning a certain income, it's very, very difficult to then downgrade your lifestyle from an income that you're used to. So being able to transition from that into another career potentially, or working for yourself, is a very difficult one, because you've got outlays, you've kind of lived to your means, and you're on this constant corporate gerbil wheel, or whatever you want to call it, and hamster wheel. And you just kind of get trapped by it in a way. I'm not saying it's like corrupt in that point of view, but you just kind of like, you earn more money, you get a bigger house, you get a nicer car, and you spend more money. You don't kind of keep the same level and just bank the money or invest it. You tend to do that, which, until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I didn't really think about too much. So it was interesting. So then I was like, well, after the singing died down, which we did for 3 years from 2015 to 2018, I was like, well, what can I do? And I actually got into network marketing, which I know can sometimes get a mixed reputation from people, but I must admit it was difficult. I was rubbish at it to start with. The first year, I very up and down, found it difficult. And I was with a skincare company as a bloke in skincare. It's kind of, it's
Okay.
unique, but it's also difficult to get that buy-in from people. And yeah, I did that for 2.5 years, but I was quite successful in the end. I was turning over quite a large sum of money each month and earning decent commissions. But because I'm quite outspoken on the COVID stuff and various other topics to do with sort of truth seeking, if you want to call it that, I ended up losing that account overnight. So then I had to rebuild again, and I'd just gone part-time as a lawyer. So because of my business is going so well, I'd gone down to 3 days a week, and I actually lost my business overnight. So suddenly I've from being on some pretty good money with 2 income streams to literally like part-time lawyer 3 days a week. I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. So yeah, I was looking for something else, and then I found ClearPHONE and kind of went from there really, and the rest is history.
So what year was that? You found
that was in
ClearPHONE?
June 2020. That was when I lost my business, so my skincare business. So and I left being a lawyer in November of 2020. I had a little bit of money behind me, so I was already on the transition for leaving my job as a lawyer, and I was just like, you know what, I've got an income stream from something else that I was doing for a little bit, but I was like, I'll find something, and so I was just like, and I'd got a bit of money behind me anyway, so I just, I was free and open, I suppose, at that point to looking at things, and I just believe that the sun always shines on the righteous. So I think if you do the right things by the right people, and during a difficult time, I did the right things by the right people. I think the right things will find you. And so I'm a big believer in karma and things like that, and just good energy, good vibes, bringing good things generally. That doesn't mean there won't be some ups and downs, because there always will be, but I think you've got to always try and keep a positive disposition, and that will drive you on and push you through the tough times.
Yeah. So no doubt you're following your passion, rather than, it doesn't sound like you're a person that could keep doing something you're not truly kind of passionate about in the long term.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I think the thing is, when I was a lawyer, I was actually really passionate about it. I enjoyed working long hours for a while. It was kind of like, it was really good. And the thing is, I actually had to look back at it, and I was like, well, what was my motivating factor? And really, even though I enjoyed the success and I enjoyed winning cases, it was just about earning more money. And I think if your main driver is just about earning more money, you're never going to be happy. It's as simple as that, because you're never going to, it's unlimited. There's no sort of upper limit, what is your target, and then you hit that target, where do you go from there? So really, I think getting a passion project or doing something that you really love, and you're making an impact with people, is the most important thing. And after you're gone, you can't take it with you, so you want to have just impacted and made an impact on as many people's lives as possible, in my opinion. That's what drives me, and I'm a big solution provider, so I must admit I might sometimes not always be the most emotional person. Doesn't mean I don't have emotions, but I'm like, if somebody has a problem, I'm just like, okay, we can't cry over spilt milk, really. That's happened. That's the situation. What are we going to do about it? I go to that place very, very quickly. So when people are telling me about their problems, and maybe they're limited on time or I'm limited on time, if we don't have like loads of time, we'll cut to the chase and just cut through the stuff and get to the answers or the solution. So I need to work on that probably a little bit, but then time is precious sometimes. So when you're trying to do lots of things, it comes with the territory a little bit. But I'd like to think that I provide some pretty decent, solid advice for people inside and outside of what I do for work. And weirdly, I get a lot of girls come to me for advice on men. So, which is a bit weird, which is probably a bit weird for a 36-year-old single bloke. I tend to be able to help them make it simple. So
I was going to say, maybe you can start something else there. Maybe we'll see some new kind of dating or something, advice from James Neale. Maybe that could be the next thing.
I know. I'm really tempted. It's just finding the time, but I've storyboarded some of the stuff that I would put on my page if I was going to do it. So yeah, I do have an idea about that, but it's not for me right now. So yeah, I've got a few things I want to do over the next few months, and then if I achieve those, then that'll free me up to maybe focus on another project. So yeah, we'll go from there.
But you have mentioned to me that you've got a bit of a passion project now. So just Just tell us a little bit about that. What is that passion project?
Yeah, so I'm involved with, as you said in your intro, the world's first and only decentralized encrypted de-Googled phone called the ClearPHONE. So this came across my lap when obviously I'd left being a lawyer and I was looking for something else. And weirdly, somebody had actually tried to show it to me several months before. But when I was transitioning out of being a lawyer, I was in a very busy place. So I just didn't look at it properly. It wasn't shown to me very well. I didn't understand what it was, if I'm honest. So by January of 2021, it came across my lap again from a different person, and they showed it to me in a much better way. And I was like, right, okay, I understand this now. This is really, really important, and I get why it's so crucial for the world. And basically, I kind of fell into it, if I'm honest. I wasn't expecting to grow a big team or anything like that and sell a lot of phones. I just thought, do you know what? A lot of people need this. It's an important piece of tech. And just kind of push the message out there. And then it started going really well. And I kind of fell into this leadership role, I suppose, of like growing a big team around the world with it. And the more and more I got into it, the more I was like, I really, really like what this is about. I think the main things for me and what I saw with it was, yes, the technology is really good, but the people behind the technology are amazing people as well. And I buy as much into people as the technology because I trust that they're going to follow through with the stuff that they're going to do. So it's already a really good place when I got involved, but also where it was going really excited me as well. And, that's how it became a bit of a passion project for me. I think the main thing about this, the company that I'm sort of partnered with, affiliated with called ClearPHONE, is the fact that they allow me to be myself no matter what. So I lost a business for being myself, basically, for talking about topics that I wanted to talk about on my social media. And that's almost actively encouraged. I'm allowed to be myself. They don't necessarily condone everything that I say or do or anything like that, but they just allow me to be myself, talk about the things I want to talk about. And I like to think that generally the stuff that I talk about on my social media, which I am very, very passionate about, I'm about informing people and ensuring that they get proper information and that they're able to feel like they've got other people out there that feel and think the same way as they do or sit along similar lines. I think that's just really, really important for the world right now. A lot of people have felt very isolated and alone, and like they don't have a safe space to go talk about things or be themselves because the world has been very polarized right now. Divide and conquer and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's what's going on right now. So yeah, to have a company that allow you to and empower you to be yourself and do the things and talk about the things that you want to, I think is really, really important and unique actually. A lot of companies are very, very concerned about reputation, as they should be, but at the same time, we're not all the same. Like everybody has their own uniqueness, and we have to embrace that. Like I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't actively go out there to be different, but I take things from other people and I listen to people, and I might go, do you know what? I like 80% of what that person says, and I might share something of what they've said that I agree with. But just because I share something that somebody has said that I agree with doesn't mean I agree with everything that they say and everything that comes out their mouth. Like Andrew Tate is an obvious example, who's obviously got censored, the kickboxing guy, who's made a lot of money in other things as well now. He's very outspoken. I don't like his attitude a lot of the time, what he says about women, for example, and stuff like that. But then what he says about what's going on in the world and things like that really resonates with me, and I like that, and I agree with him on that front. So I'm allowed to pick and choose what I like about people and what I don't like about people, and there'll be people that say the same about me. Like what I stand for is I stand for truth, and I stand for people being able to be themselves and stand up for themselves and have good, open, honest debates. And we can also agree to disagree. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But some people in this day and age, it's all about cancel culture. And if you don't do the politically correct thing, then you're a terrible person and you're this, that, the other. No, am I not just allowed to question and query things? Because sometimes that's all it is. You're just questioning and querying, wondering what other people's opinions are. Interesting dinner debate topics is the way that I talk about it. And it's as simple as that. And so anyway, going back to the company, I'm just really passionate about it because of that main fact, but also because it is a solution-driven company. I am a solutions-driven person, as I explained earlier when I'm talking about girls with guys and stuff. I just cut to the chase and get to the solution and get to what the next steps are. And that's what this company and this phone does. But it's not just about a phone. The phone protects your privacy data and security and in lots of different ways. And I could bore you with that. But the fact is that it just does it. but also there's a whole ecosystem behind it to do with decentralized storage, to do with decentralized energy solutions, food solutions, etc., etc. Even decentralized, team meetings, platforms, and all kinds of stuff. So that kind of thing is really, really important if you think the same way about the world as I do and where things are going, because during lockdowns, particularly in Australia and even in the UK and Canada and stuff like that, lots of stories have come out about the fact that your government were tracking you everywhere you were going with your mobile phone, and they make no bones about it. They don't bang about it from the rooftops, but they literally drop little nuggets out there to say, look, we are watching, we're listening, we know exactly what you're doing, and whether you're being a good citizen and complying or not. Well, for me, the governments are paid for and they're there because of us. And not the other way around. They're not there to control us. They actually do our bidding and not the other way around. And so they're there to help provide certain services and, maybe provide, army resources and stuff like that to protect us from foreign invasions. But we don't even need to go into that kind of stuff because that's a rabbit hole in itself. But the fact is that, they're there to provide certain things like that through, taxes or whatever and things like that. But ultimately, they're not there to dictate to us what we do, and that's what I get fed up with. I get fed up with being told what to do. As long as we're not harming anybody, we should all be able to go about our business. Anyway, rant over. I talked a lot.
Well, yeah, you took up a lot of different things there. I think the big thing that people are starting to see now is that the censorship and what we can and can't say, first of all, obviously on the social media, all the different platforms, things are being taken down and we're not allowed to basically have freedom of speech, eh?
Well, no, exactly. I mean, there's like this big tech tyranny, I call it. They're literally accessing your microphone and your camera 24/7. Then by that, what they're doing is they're data profiling you. They are then, you could look at it and they're just like, oh, they're just sending me a pair of shoes or a golf set or, a rental property or a holiday that I might be interested in, etc. But actually what they're doing is they know your likes and your dislikes. They know everything that you stand for and don't stand for. They then can target you, send you stuff to try and influence and sway your opinions. They can then, if a social credit system came in like they have in China, they're able to then, maybe criticize you / even limit you and things that you can do and your freedoms. So there's a very, very scary thought. And if you look at all the things that are going on with the central bank's digital currency, CBDC and stuff like that, that's going to be a programmable digital currency where they can control what you spend and don't spend it on. So if you're taking too many flights that month or year, they can go, right, you've used up your CO2 emissions this year, you're not going on a flight anymore for the next 12 months. Like, what do you do? If they've got control over your cash, the money in your bank, because it's all electronic, and they can control what you spend and don't spend it on through clever algorithms and stuff, and that is what's coming in 100%, that is what they're trying to do, then it's very, very scary thought. And trying to do away with cash and people being able to actually operate outside of the current banking system is something that it should be detested and fought against. And ultimately, if you put that kind of power in the hands of a few, power corrupts. So whether they're corrupt at the beginning or not, whether they're doing it with the best of intentions or not, and I'm not telling you what I think, but power corrupts. And so that's what will happen, and it will get messy, it will be horrible. And once you've given that power over to governments and to big banks and big tech, you very rarely get it all back later down the line. And that's what I was always saying to people about the COVID stuff, is that if you go and adhere to all this stuff now, you'll never go back to what it was before. They take you here, then they'll bring you back here, then they'll take you there and they'll bring you here, and they'll get you to the end point that they want you to by just gradually turning up the heat and lowering it a little bit, turning up the heat a lot, lowering it a little bit. And then you'll go like, oh, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of freedom when we should all be free in the first place.
That's right. And I mean, freedom is everything, isn't it, really? And as you say, it's small steps that are being taken that people may not think that, it's okay it's for our own good, it's the way we're going, it's technology, we can't get away from it. So there seems to be people that kind of believe that centralization is happening, and then you got the other people that definitely we got to look at decentralized or build up different communities to get away from this. So, as you say, looking at solutions for how we can't stop certain things happening, but what can we do to work around it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm just about taking positive action, positive steps. So, for example, with the ClearPhone, it's just the best example I can give. With your data, if you're on an iPhone, you've got iCloud where you back up all your stuff, or if you're on an Android phone, you're probably using G Drive, Google Drive, or something like that. So those are all centralized resources where big tech basically own your data. They're just allowing you access to it effectively. So you lose your password or you have a problem with your account, you go to them and they fix it for you. Whereas with decentralized technology, it's very much puts the end user at the forefront of it and puts them in charge. So imagine with your centralized cloud system, if somebody hacks into it, they get access to absolutely everything of yours, your passwords, your logins, your information, your photos, your banking details, yada, yada, everything, right? Whereas, and that actually happened in Hollywood, like all the A-list celebrities got their iClouds hacked, all their naked images and videos went everywhere, the females, and it went all over the lads groups and everywhere, because once somebody got in, they're in. And so, and access to everything. Whereas with decentralized tech, it's almost like smashing your information up into millions of pieces and spreading it across millions of computers around the world. Imagine putting your information through a shredder, and somebody gets one tiny little shred of your information. They have no idea who it relates to, what it relates to. It looks like gobbledygook. They got no idea. They can't use it in any way, shape, or form. Whereas, and then what you can do is actually you're the only person who can kind of bring it all back together and access that information. So it puts you at the forefront. Even the person that's introduced, that has created that technology, does not have access to it. So somebody could go to Clear and go, we want the digital identity stuff and all the digital information you hold on James Neale. And Clear would go, we have as much access to it as you do, because it's all decentralized technology. And so we have absolutely zero access. So it's one of those where it's really, really crucial to understand that distinct difference. So decentralization is definitely for the people and allows you to have your cake and eat it, so to speak. So you can back up stuff, you can store stuff, but you're storing it in a much more secure way. And that's what I don't understand about big tech, is that if they're really in everybody's favor, they would be encouraging and pushing for decentralized technology, but they're not. And the fact is, with decentralized technology, things actually work better. You don't get the data breaches and stuff. Like I just actually, before this call, posted about Google in here in the UK, who got fined 1.6 billion pounds because they were illegally sharing data and stuff like that with the NHS. So there's loads of stuff going on and we don't hear enough about it. They're like buried in the middle of the newspapers and stuff and whatever, and people don't really hear so much about all this. But what people also don't understand about technology is that basically with your phones, the companies don't make that much money from your mobile phone or your data, or selling you a data plan, so your cellular plan, so your minutes and texts and stuff like that. They actually make 24 times the amount from processing and accessing and selling your data. So that's where, data is actually worth more than oil. So we should really pay a bit more attention to it. And if anybody's going to get paid for that, it should be you and not big tech. So yeah.
That's incredible. And I don't think people really are aware of that. I think freedom is really owning your own stuff, your information. It shouldn't be sold on. It just doesn't seem right to me. And I often think about when you're on the phone and you use all the apps too, and you allow the apps. You get a prompt. Do you allow this app to have access to your camera and all the information? And I never used to question what that actually meant, but now I've learned that you're basically giving them access to all your information.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I always share a video with people where it's really interesting because people just think, oh, it's about apps like Facebook and stuff like that. But what Facebook are doing is when you download it onto your normal phone, on your Android or your iPhone, unlike the ClearPhone, you're basically giving them carte blanche access to everything on your phone. So your bank details, your logins, they know what you've searched for on the internet, etc., etc. So then they are building up a profile on you all the time. I don't care if Facebook can see what I do inside Facebook and what I post about. I care about them trying to censor me when I'm talking sense. But the fact is that there's nothing I can really do about that. But when I'm posting and using their platform, I know that they're going to see what I do. That's fine. But what I don't like is them knowing every keystroke and everything I do outside of the app. Why should you have access to that? You know, my dad used to film us like when we were younger, like me and my brothers, when we were like 5, 3 and 1 years old, maybe in the bathtub together or something like that for memories, you know, and things like that, maybe running through the sprinklers naked in the back garden. But he used to have a big camcorder with a VHS player on his shoulder, and you take the VHS player out and you put it in the recorder and you just play it. So it's private, secure, just you had it in the camcorder, then you put it in the VHS player, it's just yours as well. Nobody else has access to it, no cloud, no other rubbish involved. And so it's just pure and purely private.
Yeah, I
Whereas,
used to have one of those, James.
what was that, sorry?
I used to have one of those
Yeah.
camcorders.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're massive as well. They're really heavy. But now everybody has a mobile phone, and they basically go and record and do everything on there because it's easy. The quality of the cameras is pretty good, and you can just literally have it there at a touch of a click of a button, and everybody carries them around with them. So then what happens is on your normal phone, your iPhone, your Android phone, you're doing a photo or a video of your kids or whatever it is, and you take that, then suddenly it gets uploaded straight onto a cloud, backed up. Somebody hacks into that cloud, they've got access to your stuff. Even if you haven't posted it on social media or Facebook have access to it, goes onto their cloud. It also goes onto, you know, your iCloud or your G Drive or whatever and stuff like that. Now, do you really want all your private memories and stuff like that and your private photos and videos going there? No. Do you want them knowing what you're searching for on the internet? No. Like, why should they have access to it? It's not just to sell you a pair of shoes, trust me. Like, it's much more nefarious than that. So, yeah, people need to start wising up a little bit, I think, to what's going on and take back some control and autonomy over that, because and sovereignty, really, that's what it all boils down to, isn't it? So
Exactly.
yeah.
And the more we, I mean, the thing is, it's so easy to go for, you know, iPhones and Apples and Google and all that sort of stuff because they make it really easy. And the thing is, once we get used to something, it's easy to just, you know, keep going with that. But I guess we got to look at the choices that are out there and where we want to go with it and who we want to support. And the fact is, like, I talk to a lot of people and there's many people that say, well, you know, they're going to literally, they're going to get rid of their phone. Well, the fact is that's not going to happen because we are, it's just not going to happen that we go back in technology. That's what I'm saying. So therefore, I think it's really important that we have another solution. And if we then go with that other solution, we've got to have a little bit of flexibility to maybe just be a little bit adaptable, perhaps when we start using something that is perhaps slightly different.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And like, I went through an iPhone detox because I was an iPhone user for over 10 years, and I got like a MacBook Air and I've got an iPad and stuff like that as well. So when I got my ClearPHONE 21 months ago, I had 5 days where I was like cold sweats and this, that, trying to get used to like one that it was and I say this slowly because otherwise it sounds like I'm swearing, but a fork off of Android. So it's a fork, so it's more like an Android type setup. And basically it was just difficult because obviously, you know, on an Apple phone, I would literally just go in, log into my cloud. It would download all the apps for me that I had on my old phone, just like that in 5 seconds, basically, like a couple of clicks of a button, leave it there for a few minutes. It was all there. And now I had to like re-download all my apps, log into them, probably forgot a couple of logins, but you know, got all that done. And then once I was kind of set up and got it set up the way that I wanted it to, it was flying. So it just takes a little bit it does always take a little bit of time getting used to new technology or learning new stuff. But ultimately, I don't even notice any difference in performance on this phone compared to any other phone I've had before. But I know that it's obviously protecting my privacy, data and security. And I take more proactive options in terms of the stuff that I use. And I love having a de-Googled phone. And the big reason is because I share a video, it's only about 3.5 minutes long, where there's a guy in Washington, DC, and this is several years ago. So imagine how the technology's moved on since. He's got 2 phones. So he's basically there walking around Washington, DC with one phone, which is on airplane mode with a SIM card in, and one phone, which is turned off completely, no SIM card. He's walking around Washington, DC, you know, let's just say he goes by plane, train, automobile type stuff to loads of different locations, comes back to his office, hooks it up to the Wi-Fi and tests what information and data it's sending back to Google. Both phones tracked him everywhere he went, including the one that was completely turned off and had no SIM card in it. So if you think your phone isn't listening to you 24/7, accessing all your data, accessing your microphone, your camera, tracking you everywhere you're going, then you are sorely mistaken. And the fact is that that's why I love having like a de-Googled phone, because they get their tentacles into everything. Everything. That's why they're so big. And they use special computers to do all this. And for example, Apple, I'm going to send you articles on that, where they've listened to private medical appointments and things like that. And they've got people, like, literally they're listening to people in the bedroom, you know, being amorous, shall we say, and stuff like that, and all the bits in between. So that, you know, why should they have access to that? Everybody keeps their phone next to their bed. So, or pretty much like using an alarm clock. So, yeah. So if it's listening to you, what do you imagine what it's hearing?
And isn't it funny? I've heard some people in the last couple of years, they're saying, oh, you know, we're going to be tracked and whatever, they've in the jab or whatever, but they're tracking us or whatever. And I think, well, hang on there, you got a phone that tracks you.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we are so hypnotized to, you know, using the phones. No way that I think most people could just go cold turkey and not have a phone and go back to the, you know, the old landlines. I don't think that's going to happen somehow.
Do you know what though? They're not secure. So people go like, I'm going to go get a dumb phone. So basically, like by that, what I mean is like an old Nokia that just calls and texts.
Yeah.
But then you're using your telecommunications network, where it could be Telstra, Optus, Vodafone, whoever it is. You could end up using you're using their communication platform. So you're using them to send texts, to make calls. They're listening to you 24/7. So you need a secure platform. And this phone actually provides you with something called Clear Signal. So it's like Signal, which is a messaging platform, but on steroids is the best way to put it. Much more secure, private, locks all backdoor accesses, stops any keystrokes being recorded, and is end-to-end encrypted and very, very secure. So, you know, ClearPhone to ClearPhone over Clear Signal is probably the most secure communication platform that you can use. You can send your messages, do video calls, normal calls, send media, photos, videos, etc., and do it all securely. But the great thing about it is, if you have friends that aren't on a secure phone and maybe they can't, you know, afford to get a clear phone for now or whatever, then get them to download Signal, because Signal is the most secure platform. Telegram's compromised, WhatsApp's compromised. Signal is the best one out there. So, you know, even if you're not thinking of getting a clear phone just yet for whatever reason, then definitely my top tip is to get Signal and utilize that as much as you can for all your calls, messages and stuff, because that keeps it away from your telco company. Like it would if you used a WhatsApp to WhatsApp call, but WhatsApp are not end-to-end encrypted no matter what they say. They've got data breaches happening all over the shop. They got fined 250 million euros in Europe last year for data breaches. So, you know, just choose the right platforms, choose the right options is the most important thing.
Yeah. It's a lot of information that a lot of people don't know, I think. And I was just thinking too that what about Zoom that we're using now? I heard the other day that's owned by China, isn't it? And
yeah, so basically, yeah, that's right. They will be currently using AI. They've used bots to transcribe everything that we're saying. They'll build up a profile on us, and they will utilize that in whatever way they want to. So they're doing that if every single Zoom conversation has ever happened, basically. So we need to get off centralized platforms, even like Zoom, for example. So Clear have come up with, if you get ClearPhone, you actually get a decentralized platform called ClearOne, which is brilliant, and basically is like a team meeting platform, does exactly what Zoom does, and more, and allows you to put tasks in there, upload documents, all kinds of different things, but also utilize it like what Zoom is. It does exactly the same thing, like, you know, Microsoft Teams and all that. It's exactly the same, but just decentralized, so it doesn't, you know, steal your data and transcribe everything that you're doing and saying.
That's amazing. So you have to have a ClearPhone to be part of ClearOne, or?
Yes, you can jump on a ClearOne call if somebody else has set it up, who obviously has a ClearPhone, then you get access to that. So yeah, so ClearPhones have access to an account where you can run, you can actually run your sort of ClearOne back office. But basically, yeah, it's then otherwise to jump on a call, you don't have to have a Clear United phone, your ClearPhone. So yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, it's pretty clear that you're very passionate about not just ClearPhone, but there seems to be so much more around what they actually created, their Clear United company, with Clear One and lots of other things they do. You said Clear Energy and all these other things as well. So it's a whole digital world, or decentralized digital world, isn't it?
Yeah, I call it like an ecosystem. So yeah, it's all the kind of facets that we will need in the future. So obviously some of these things are sort of forward-looking statements, and some of them are in development, shall we say, at the moment, but a lot of it is pretty much there now. So yeah, very, very exciting times. And for me personally, like, yes, I'm I've got a big team with Clear. I've got thousands of phones around the world within my team, but I like the connections and the relationships that I make, but also I want other companies to come into this space. I know that Michael, the founder, Michael Proper, would say the same thing. He embraces competition because we want to make this more mainstream. We want this to be the norm, not the exception. So that's the most crucial thing. Like, I can go make money doing other things. That's fine. Like, the reason I push this so much is the fact that it's a real passion project for me. And I know that this is needed now, but it's going to be really needed in the next few years with all the stuff that's coming. And so it's absolutely crucial. But what I also love about it is you can kind of operate outside the current financial banking system as well, because you can actually utilize our ClearPay wallet and upload cash into a Clear Visa, which is a prepaid debit card. And you can take cash out of cash machines at the wall. You can spend the money direct, and it's not within your fiat currency bank accounts with a traditional route. So things like that are going to be really important. I've got friends that have had their bank accounts completely shut down because of the stuff that they're doing and talking about, and that's in places like Canada and Australia. If they've got the power to do that, you need to have alternative options. And so, don't just think that that's going to be the exception. That will be something that happens a lot more often soon, with regards to whether you're playing ball with what the big tech and big government want. And if you're not, then they will start putting the pressure on you. And that could just be to do with that programmable digital currency. If they're telling you what you can and can't spend your money on, it could even just be you don't have your bank account shut down, but you just don't have autonomy and control over your cash. So what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's an incredible world we're living in at the moment, eh? And it seems, like you say, so polarized too. It makes me kind of think, I mean, some people really kind of get what's happening behind the scenes, and then you get the other lot that thinks something else is playing out. But there's no doubt that if people knew about this decentralized and actually got the real hang of it, I think there would be a whole lot of people that would want to go that way if they really understood it, rather than being stuck in a system where they're completely controlled.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a bit of well, if you use it or you lose it. So if you don't support and back stuff like what Clear are doing, then the company won't survive and it won't go anywhere, and not enough people will have it in their hands to make a difference. And the fact is that the more phones and the bigger we make this, the more solutions we'll get, because there'll be more people able to get involved. It'll be reaching a wider audience. Like Clear love collaborations, so they will collaborate with good quality third parties that will get involved. And what I really like about the company is it's a not-for-profit. They're not here to make cash for shareholders and stuff like that. And I think that's a really important point, because some people are like, well, what happens if they sell out or they do this? Well, firstly, decentralized platforms are decentralized platforms. So if they are truly decentralized, then it won't even matter if somebody tried to buy it out, but they can't and they won't, because it's a not-for-profit. So it's not there to benefit shareholders. People aren't going to be forcing through a sale or something like that. The people involved in this right at the top are people that are very benevolent, very giving, who want to make a difference in the world. And it's a passion project for them as well. So it's really, really important to understand that distinction between other companies and people like Apple and the other tech companies in the world. They're all about benefiting the rich and the shareholders and all that kind of stuff. And they're not really about the end user as much. So yeah, I think that's an important distinction. And yeah, I just love this company because any leftover profits they may make, after they've paid for their staffing and their office costs and stuff like that. They end up giving to charity, and they're very benevolent charities as well, like very conscious charities where the money goes where it should be going and doesn't necessarily get caught up in just what we call red tape. So, stuff like Operation Underground Railroad, which is where former US Marines and stuff go into underground tunnels and rescue kids and stuff, which does happen, doesn't get reported about much on the news, but it does happen. They've rescued hundreds of kids, and they do an excellent job. So companies like that, charities like that, are the ones that they support. So I just love what this is about, and the fact that people are coming at this with everything that they are, because not really for financial gain, but more for making an impact and making a difference. And that's the most important thing. We need to come together and unite.
Absolutely. That's it. That's incredible. What I was going to say, the last thing that I'd like to ask you before you wrap it up, James, because we could keep talking forever, couldn't we, about this? I find it really, really interesting. But just the last 2 or 3 years that obviously been challenging for a lot of people, how would you sum it up? It's affected you personally. What has been the good things that have come out of it, and what has been some of the challenges that have come out of it?
Yeah, so I like to end on positives rather than negatives. So I'll talk about the negatives first.
Negative first. I was just thinking that as I said that, the negative first and the positive.
So I think the negatives are, I've definitely lost some friends, people that I was quite close to as well in some instances. So that's been difficult. I know that sometimes some of the things that I say upset people, but it's not really meant from that way. It's just meant to question and query and test people's assumptions and test the things that we've been told and taught over time. So I don't see anything wrong with that. I think you actually arrive at the best solutions by testing theories and testing, your preconceived ideas that you've been told about for many, many years. So sometimes the answer probably is in the middle ground. Maybe I go a bit extreme sometimes. Maybe they're too placid and not wanting to question and query everything. There's an answer in the middle somewhere. But it's important to be aware of the issues. But anyway, lost some friends, some good friends. Hopefully those things can resurrect themselves in the future. So that was difficult. Obviously losing my business was difficult with the previous business, but every cloud has a silver lining. If I hadn't lost that business, I would have never done ClearPHONE. So, that's a real positive from that situation. And otherwise, just watching people potentially take something, a vaccine that they don't need to take, that could potentially cause them a lot of harm. That's upsetting. That's a negative over the last 2.5 years for me. So, my dad just had his 4th booster. So, like 4th jab, his 2nd booster. So, I hope he's okay. I hope they've given him a saline injection rather than a real thing or something like that, because I believe that that's what they're doing. But to some people, but the fact is that, I don't like to see people going and taking something that I don't think they need. I think your immune system is an amazing thing. And I think, you need to strengthen that up rather than looking for outside quick fixes. Like I haven't got ill for like 6 years because I supplement well. I do have a few beers, and eat a bit of chocolate and a bit of crap food every now and again, but I generally look after myself. But I think most of your health is up here. So if you let yourself get negative and you let yourself get down about things, you will vibrate as a person. We're all energetic beings, and you will vibrate at a low energy, and you will get ill. You will develop, cancerous cells, or you will end up, getting a cold or the flu or, whatever. You will end up ill. So you need to keep this fresh. You need to keep this healthy, keep this in a good place, and the rest will follow, because your body reacts to that, and your mind's the most powerful tool you've got. So I genuinely believe that. So that's the negatives and a little bit of positive. And then I think the positives are, like, I've been personally able to completely be myself and step into a space where I feel very empowered by that. Secondly, I've made a lot of good new friends, a lot more than I've lost. So I've really I've connected and sometimes reconnected with people that I haven't seen for ages. And I get a lot of people that kind of lurk in the shadows, just send me messages going, I love what you're talking about. I just can't comment or like it because I can't afford for work to see or this, that, the other. But I agree with you. And I love all that kind of stuff because you know, I want people to be able to actually talk about these things properly, but it's still nice to know that there's lots of people that agree. And then I suppose otherwise, I like to think that we needed this. All the stuff that's happened over the last few years, I think it was needed to wake people up. We're becoming more and more enslaved as time goes on. If you look at fiat currency, not a single fiat currency has ever survived, because they literally just print cash as they want. It's like monopoly money. And I won't go into all the detail on that, but if you've got £2 trillion in the system and you print another £2 trillion, if you've got £100,000 in the bank, it's now worth 50. It's as simple as that. You double the amount of money in the system. And if it's not backed by anything like gold, silver, whatever, tangible physical assets, it's not really money. It's just fiat currency. Money is those physical, tangible assets. And that's something important for people to know. And they've enslaved us through the banking systems and things like that. Don't have time to go into that now, but people are waking up to it, and they're starting to understand what's going on and how the world really works and how we potentially might be able to fight back. I think some people go down some wrong routes, but everything's a learning process. So I'm always like, look, I've gone and cocked up the odd thing, and I've done the odd thing or gone down the odd rabbit hole that's wrong. But you only learn by testing your assumptions and making some mistakes, and you can fail your way to success. Like, not everything's going to go perfectly, but I think a lot of people are really starting to step into their power, discovered alternative ways of living. It's actually pulling communities closer together, even though there is divide as well. There's a lot of people coming together over this stuff. And ultimately, I think in the next several years, we'll create a better planet and a fairer planet for more people, rather than one that divides and actually exacerbates the wealth divide. So, yeah, I'm very, very hopeful for the future, but really, it's all just down to us and people power at the end of the day, and it's not down to anybody to come and save us.
That's right. There were some really good points you made there, James. And I think assumptions, it's really important that we challenge them, because our assumptions really create our reality. And, now is the time to really look at everything, look at ourselves and ask ourselves, where does it come from? Where does that thought or where does that assumption come from? And is it true? And just, I mean, this is the thing with critical thinking, we're starting to kind of, we're really being forced into now really start doing that before it's really too late, before, things are taken.
And there will come a point where it's a tipping point. It will be like they've pushed their boulder up the hill, and then it's down the other side, and you won't be able to stop it. So you need to draw a line in the sand now. So yeah. Catherine just asked, should you download a Facebook on a ClearPHONE? Yeah, you can have Facebook on ClearPHONE. What you post in Facebook is being able to be seen there. We've got a thing called Permission Manager on the ClearPHONE that allows you to control what you're sharing and not sharing with Big Tech. So you can just lock down your Permission Manager. If you go into settings, you can just go into there and type in permission, and you'll find it, and you can see what you're sharing and not sharing with any app on your phone and lock that down. But technically, it builds a firewall around the app to stop it from accessing all your stuff outside the app. Imagine like building an electric fence around it. So
yeah. And the thing you said early on, James, about community, I also heard that Clear United also got their Clear Community, which is basically equivalent to Facebook. It's a social platform, but it's a safer way of communicating.
Yeah,
so
that's right. Clear.community. You can go create a profile there. It's in its infancy is the best way to put it, but it works really well. And it's just like Facebook, but without censorship and without ads. So yeah, a much safer, better place to go post your stuff and connect with friends and chat about various different world topics. So yeah, no, definitely. I would encourage people to go there, clear.community.
Fantastic. So anyone that's been listening into this podcast or watched the live on Facebook, I'm sure you've got some food for thought here, and we can all go in and connect, I suppose, at, clear.community. I'll be sending out information to anyone that registered for the event or anyone that's posting questions, and you guys can get in contact with either me or James for any questions or queries you have. But it's been a pleasure, James, to get to know you a little bit more personally and your journey and why you're so passionate about what you're doing at the moment. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for having this conversation with me.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. Cheers.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.